it was a very, very big shock in a way, because it's like all of a sudden, we had to turn off our fridge because there was no food in it, and it was just wasting electricity.
Welcome to Damiri Podcast. I'm your host, Tariq Al-Miri. This episode is in English and it has a little bit of Arabic, Libyan Arabic. I want to start off by thanking all of you, all my Patreon supporters, members. Without you, this podcast would not have been possible. Thank you, each and every one of you. And if you are a new listener and you feel like you benefited already and want to make a contribution, as little as the price of a coffee, you can hit this link. Thank you. My guest is Bahjat, singer, songwriter, and pop artist. We talked about the usual stuff that gets me excited. First, his starting point, obstacles on the way, the achievements he's accomplished, hopes and dreams and future plans. And most interestingly, and the thing that might inspire you most, is the daily routine, the stuff we talk about at the end, the stuff that will get you inspired to do the things that you want to achieve. I'm 100% sure that you're going to like this episode and you might come out of it inspired. You might come out of it with an idea that will get you started, that might even get you unstuck. I'm excited. Ready? Let's do it. شن حالك؟
الحمد لله تمام.
حسيت راح في الليبيا FM or something. Have you done one of those already or not yet?
I have. Yeah. I don't know which ones exactly, but like I have done a few radio things.
غريبة. It didn't come to my radar. مفروض خشيت هيك as part of my research والله. ما طلعت ليش يعني.
معقولة هيك.
شفت مش مضايق الهومورك بتاعي. I hope I don't embarrass myself يعني. No, just generally, realistically, how are you? يعني,
no, but I'm good. I'm really good. I'm really excited for this and also for the release of the song.
You sound like you just released or you just completed a song that's about to be released. And if the smile on your face, like done. Almost.
Yeah, because as I told you, we like remastered it again, like from scratch and remixed it. It was like a really hectic process with a lot of deadlines and a lot of commitments from other people. Yeah.
Nice.
It took a lot of trust and courage to say let's do it from scratch, and we had like 2 days to finish it.
I'm very excited for more than one reason. Yani. You're the first of a few. You're the first artist. I usually lead the interviews with a song, so I feel a bit awkward presenting you a song that is random. So that's one. You're the first multi-million streamed Spotify artist that makes music, makes good international music as well. So there's many firsts that we are going to celebrate, and I'm sure there's firsts in the middle of the conversation. I cannot contain my excitement for this interview. I hope it translates remotely to you. It's a bit of a challenge to do that in different rooms. But if we're not leading with a random song, which is a good place to be, I think if you allow me to introduce your new song, your new single that's just released this week. Is that okay?
Yes, please do.
Please. Okay. أنا ما كملتهاش بالعاني باش ما نحرقش كل التفاصيل اللي ما زال ما سمعهاش. بس هل بقى كترت اللوم يعني. ومش اللوم إن هي حاس انت بالبتريل هيك بالخيانة بس بتفش غلك بس بتقولها خلاص destiny will take care of you essentially يعني. بس فشيت غلك at the same time يعني no?
Yeah, كنا ما نديرهاش في الأغنية where will I do it?
In real life maybe. لا هي شوف أنا فتحت لما بعتها لي يعني أنا هدرسنا في الموضوع أن generally the title is going to be حاجة زي هيك، بس لما شفتها انخلعت. يجيك يوم يعني زي ما حد يقول كرا نهارك أحرف يعني it's like it's a strong message. فيها نقلة كبيرة من أغانيك اللي قبلها يعني صح؟ So where did this come from? Which space did this get born in يعني?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you reacted that way to it because I write so many songs, and for me, I have like hundreds of song titles. فبالنسبة لي أنا internally knowing all my stuff, it's not a big of a shock. But yeah, this was just me capturing a different sort of emotion, which is actually how I started writing music. It's like to share, like express my feelings and my frustrations because I had nowhere else to express them. So that's one of those.
فهمتك. And it's the first Libyan solo, right?
Yeah.
For you?
Yeah. I haven't released a solo Libyan song. I released my first Arabic song with Hassan Shafri, but that was the only one that I did.
So that's another first, and you're presenting it here, and it's the first Libyan solo.
Yeah.
Why is it coming in this order, or why now?
To be honest, it's not a specific thought. There isn't a specific thought behind it. As an artist, it's like I just evolve every day and grow more and more, and I have new ways of seeing things. So I'm just like doing it as it comes to me and like experiencing it as fast as people are really. So it's not like something that's like
so you have an organic journey essentially that it's based on your readiness, your growth, and what you're feeling in the moment. It's a combination of things.
Yeah,
it's a very nice way to do things because you don't have like a very predictable, boring schedule of like Arabic song, that date, and then this year, and then these numbers. Although you strike me as a planner, you have strategy, but it also that your art is enforcing it at the same time.
Yeah, I think that things would lose the fun of them if we knew exactly how everything was gonna be. Evolve. I like that like spontaneous thing in life in general with everything. It's like I'm that kind of person.
I think it's very good way to do things. Like for example, I get asked these questions many times with this podcast. Second season, we're going to be on the third with this particular episode. Wow. People always say, so what's your plan? So what's the goal? And what are you going to do? And this, like they almost enforce that planning on top of what real life gives you, what real life is like. So I do enjoy the spontaneity of what's on offer, but at the same time, you do have a loose map of like, I would love to do that interview. I love to talk about these topics. I love to discuss it in that way. I guess leaving wiggle room for reality to take shape is also enjoyable. We're gonna talk ideas back and forth.
And this is like actually, since we are on the topic of spontaneity, because with music in a lot of the ways it starts off as a an accident or a hobby or something that you're passionate about, but like with like doing a podcast, is that like something that you stumble upon as well, or is it something that you'd be like, oh, I want to try things? Because it's like I have a hard time imagining like how someone would be like, oh, I want to record a podcast for fun today.
If I were to do a 360 camera here and you look at this room, you will see that a lot of the behind the scene is not fun. But I think a podcast for me is a very loose word, and that's quite problematic. But at the same time, in that looseness becomes spontaneity. You're like, you have a space and time and episodes in audio that you can do entertainment, that you can do music, that you can do analysis, that you can do stories. So for me, it came from a very simple idea, like all the topics that I'm interested in, all the questions that I do want to ask people, and the ideas in this language, اللي هي bilingual, bicultural, does not exist for me. I could not find it anywhere else. So I'm like, why don't I do it with my documentary experience, with my filming experience? I'd love to sit down and understand people that are living in 2020 different hobbies, different interests, different professions, people with ideas that are changing their world and the world around them, for me to be inspired. And it is a very selfish reason, because I'm not a very social person. So I get to talk to you for a long time and get your attention and listen to you at the same time. And we both get something out of it. So from the result of many interviews, some people say, oh, I've never thought of how I thought about things. Oh, I've never... This feels very therapeutic. There's so many...
I heard in one of your episodes, you like it was so interesting for me to hear. It's just like within this whole, doing the podcast, it's like within the episodes themselves, they are spontaneous in a lot of the ways. I heard in one of the episodes, I think it was with Tewa, who's a one of my digital friends. And when she introduced herself and she was like, yeah, and then like I'm this years old, and you were like, why did you say that? And I was like, because it's like, it gets you thinking about the things that you say without realizing that you're saying them, because we never really reflect. So I think that's so interesting to capture.
Yeah. I'm very nosy. That helps. So I'm like, I'm prepared to be me being really, really... waiting for this motorcycle to go. Yeah, be loosely prepared for me to be very close and very intimate and very in your face for just 2 hours. I promise it won't be for life.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the fun part is I'm gonna be as much of that.
I'm feeling this energy. This never happened before. Like, I feel like I am being interviewed as well. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it to an extent. We'll see.
Yes.
If you had to introduce yourself in a context that is not formal and new to you, like you're in a social gathering, you're in a new country, how does Bahjat introduce himself these days?
I usually go introduce my name. I'm Bahjat. I'm a singer-songwriter, music artist from Libya. And then it depends on where I am. If I'm in Malta, I'd be like, yeah, I've been living in Malta for X amount of years. If I'm in Sweden, I'm going to say that. But generally, I'm a really curious person. So I just want to say the least and then just hear what people have to say, because I just love hearing people's journey. So I just go yeah, but what are you? What is your story? But if I the three things that matter, I guess the most to me is my name, where I'm from, and what I do.
I'm gonna pick up on that, not necessarily in the order. I'm intrigued by the name. It's not common for me generally. I don't have any friends with that name. I've never heard it in Libya ever. So this uniqueness, where does it come from, and what does your name mean to you? Because you've chosen it as your artist name as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was the first male-born grandchild in my dad's side of the family, and my grandpa's name is Bahjat. فعرفت متاع جاء اسمي واتي من قبل حتى before it's just it's a fact. The firstborn male child will carry the name of the grandfather. فعرفت حتى without any questions. My grandpa is from Misrata, and I think that my my heritage, I don't know how long ago, obviously, but somehow, somewhere, all the last names originate from Turkey, I would think. I guess. I guess, yeah, that's why the name is not typical.
It's unique.
Libyan.
It has a flavor, but also it's as meaning is it من البهجة يعني من الفرح, from celebration, is there another?
It's joy, happiness, farah. Oh, yeah.
بس you killed it. يجيك يوم يعني لا فيها بهجة ولا فيها فرح ولا فيها.
It's you can never feel the bahja or the farah if you do not express the other emotions, because then everything is the same.
I have a list of ideas. We're going to pick two that you feel really strongly about, that you live by, that you're testing, that you believe in. So
that sounds cool.
Yeah, one of them is be where your people are, where your tribe is. If you want to do a certain thing, you go to that country where that certain thing happens in abundance and everyone is hanging out. If you want to do something that happens to be accessible and digital, be close to that community and understand what they're doing. So be where the thing is as much as you can in order to be able to do something with it if you're interested. So that's one idea. You are, in a way, part of a certain movement to shift the culture in Libya and inspire others. Partially because through music, through whatever you do, and through whatever other people maybe in your generation are doing, you're bringing a new narrative, you're bringing a new light, and you're killing that sympathy and confusion that people feel like, oh, you come from this place that has that one story. How strongly do you feel about that? That's also an idea. Your drive or motivation that you feel other people should feel as well is you have a duty to change. You have a duty to make something happen, because a lot of people in your age, in your generation, are stuck not being able to do it. So the fact that you've done it is a proof of concept and a further motivation for them. I've lied. I don't have 4. I have 3. So which of these two is you want to lead with?
I mean, all of them sound very, very interesting and things that I think about a lot and live like within. But I think one of the most interesting things is like the last point that you mentioned, which is just looking at life from a different perspective and trying to see the possibilities and the opportunities, even in the worst situations. So I think that's something I would love to talk about, and especially here, like what you have dealt with and like the things that we have in common. I think that's so fun because we are living in such a digital open world, so a lot of people, including us, like have a lot of things in common, more than we think. So yeah, I think we could lead with that. That would be fun.
Sure, it's all yours. You lead.
Yeah.
Tell me.
But it's like, when things happen generally, whether they be positive or negative, I think something that I personally am starting to learn a lot from is just understanding that you can choose to see from certain angles. So I read 2 quotes recently that really touch upon this, and one of them said that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it.
Ooh, lots of pressure. Is that real? So it's all on you, 90%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hold me accountable to the exact numbers, but it was like a big shift between both of them. I don't know if it's 30-70 or 10-90, but I'll take it as 10-90. I live by that now.
Okay.
And then the other quote said that life is like, it always presents to you things in a neutral state. Even the things that we perceive that are negative, they are to life and to the world neutral because it's a part of life. And then you choose to either perceive it as a negative thing or perceive it as an opportunity or like a positive or a neutral thing.
Do you want to break down the first one so we're not lost? So in essence, 90% of what happens to you in life, whether it's circumstances, career, work, money, is on you. It's your responsibility, the pressure on you. 10% is a lot of circumstances that you absolutely have no control over. That's what it means, roughly, to you?
No, not really.
Okay.
But for example, let's say that someone is working a job, right? And then they get fired.
Yeah.
So what happened is that the person got fired. Does that mean that this is the end of their career? That depends on their own reaction to it. So if you go like, oh my God, I got fired, I don't know how I'm going to find a job. And then you dwell on it and you go into this like spiral of negative thoughts, then that is the meaning of the quote is that you can't like react to things in a much like bigger and like take things and make them huge and drown in them and then like blame it on life, because a lot of it could have been controlled. If you go like, okay, well, I got fired, that's not really that convenient. But now moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
like I can look into this and that and that job, and just moving with like more of a positive, taking on the next thing
So
mindset rather than dwelling on things.
So taking on your second part or the second quote of way perceiving it. So the first person, let's say, in a typical mind will say, sorry, there's a bit of interference for some reason. I'm not sure where that's coming from. So taking on the second quote that you mentioned, the first person A will say, oh, end of the world, I'm screwed, next is going to happen. Based on the interpretation that being fired is evaluating him and his performance and all that.
In a lot of ways, it's like evaluating them. They think of the economics, they think of like the social status and everything around it. Yeah.
The second interpretation would be yours now, which is, oh, it's an opportunity. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to start hunting. I'm going to up my game, see what happened, what went wrong, and start a new chapter, right?
Yeah, and not to say that it's like it's not okay to feel sad, because that's just a part of human nature, but it's how long do you keep yourself in that place? That's the question mark.
I think I want to seal this idea here.
Yeah.
And make them think, oh, we're just theoretical. We're just blah, 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 blah. And if they want to last and continue in the conversation, they're going to see that you've actually lived that, experienced that, and you've dealt with it. And that's why you are where you are today, essentially. You're happy with that? Like, I feel we locked the introduction of this idea.
Yes.
The second one was, what was your second pick?
The second one was like that life like presents you everything in a neutral state, and then we choose to either react to it. When we perceive it, we either perceive it as a positive thing or like a negative thing, which is like, it's just like a bit of like a reality check. You know, it's when we, for example, I don't know, live through a negative change or whatever, of course we're going to feel down and sad, but I think there is a bit of peace in understanding that nothing is like done so that we are purposely hurt. For example, and this is like a very dramatic example, like if there is let's say an earthquake that happened, like if you look at it from the perspective of like the earth, it's not trying to hurt anyone, it's just doing its thing in a neutral state. And then the way we perceive it, because it's the way that it affects us, it comes off as a negative thing, and we perceive it as a negative thing. So it's not like to say that we should not feel upset or sad or anything about what happens, but it's just like it's kind of makes me, at least personally, feel a bit more peace looking at life that way, because then I feel like, but like that's just how things are, and it's okay to feel that way, and like not stay in that place and feel offended and feel like I was like, you know, chosen to suffer, if you know what I mean.
It's a very mature state to be for someone. I have the right to call you young, unfortunately, because I'm way older than you. But like, what made you graduate or like reach this conclusion in life? Like what, or were you thinking differently before, or was that the neutral state that you've always been at? No,
actually, I mean, I am learning every day to just like, you know, practice it more and more, and it is hard. But I think the reason why it meant so much to me is that I've always grown up looking for like that thing of like happiness, how to always be happy, how to always feel good, how to always like la la la. And it is really stressful to think like that, because it's like, it's just not realistic to, and it's no one is happy all the time. And then when on my quest to understand that, Hickey, I just found this to be very, like, to make sense, and to use it as a way to cope with life, and as a way to cope with the things that are happening, just seeing things from like life's perspective, and being like, yeah, but it's not made to like just hurt me on purpose. It's just the way that things are. And yeah, just I'm just curious, and I read a lot of books, especially lately, and I'm just like learning from other people's experiences and lives, and yeah.
Generally, I feel that you're minimizing your experience, but I'm sure you'll be happy to share details later. But I think clear understanding of what you just mentioned does not happen in vacuum. It does not happen theoretically. Like, and it's a lot of experiences, whether it's my career or social issues, getting married, family issues with me, are the sort of the reality that I live by and understand now. Like, in essence, people's expectations versus what I really want. Society's models, whether and compared to what works for me and what I'm able to live by. All of those only get tested when you have a very, very real experience of life. Before that, you don't graduate to this understanding. So like this is my simple experience, I think.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like tied to a lot of like it's tied to a lot of like different factors, but I think that the biggest factor in everything is that it's always different when you are looking for some sort of answer, because you can as well live your life just like accepting things for what they are, and that's fine if you want to live that way. But it's like, yeah, it's both experiencing it, but also being curious enough to understand why things are, or why things happen to you the way they happen to you, and just trying to like get a grip over it. So yeah, I'm a very, as you know by now, very curious person.
Let's push straight to it, and then the next idea, نجزولها لقدام.
Yeah.
Give me a little context, background. You said you're the oldest. How many in your family? How's mom like? How's dad like? You know, let's dig deeper into family.
Well, I was born in the family of like 4 children, so I'm like the oldest, and then I have 3 siblings. And I was born and raised in Libya. I lived there still like the more than half of my life.
Other boys?
No, actually 3 boys and 1 girl.
Oh wow, opposite of mine.
Yeah.
I'm the minority, and we're 4.
Really?
We're 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
not a good place to be.
No, were you also born and raised in Libya, by the way?
I was born in the US, came back when I was 2. Technically,
okay.
But I was split between Morocco, Libya, US, but a big bulk. Let's say ابتدائي وبعدين بعد الجامعة رجعت يعني. Yeah.
Okay. So you also got to like live the Libyan childhoods and like
I had the slice. Yeah.
You had a slice of the cake.
مرندة وشن تاني عندك انت شوكولاتة ورد What are the basics that you remember يعني مثلا music?
There's a lot actually. I mean like سوقتلات, going to the beach نمشي الصبراطة الخمس.
I don't want to quote your songs, but طريق الشط في الصيف يعني.
Yes. And then الفروسية ريغاتا and all these like ومطعم هارون تاع الهمبرجر. Like that's for me, it's like the peak lunch days when we would drive by after school to grab a couple burgers from Harun.
That's
so yeah, I really
Highlanders.
That's where my school was.
Nice.
That's why it's like
في كريب ولا من غير كريب ولا
yes
dessert? Yeah, of course.
No, but the crepe of Harun is also like the best.
It's weird. It never really franchised it. They should have franchised it. Like it has a very distinct flavors. Yeah,
I know, right? It's like when you get it from there, it's like it's that thing.
I know. I think الطابور ليه علاقة يعني. That waiting makes it feel more delicious. It's not that delicious. Let's be honest.
No, it is. What do you mean? It was like my childhood thing.
My flavors graduated. I don't know about you, yani.
Well, I haven't eaten one in a while, but I'll choose to have that memory of it being the best taste to ever grace my mouth.
في شوية nostalgia هيك. That's confusing you, I think, a little bit. يعني.
Okay.
No,
I'll still think it's the best, but yeah.
No, nothing compares. For 3 boys, 1 girl, Libya, everything until uni, basically. صح؟
Yeah, until the last year and a half of high school. فعرفت نتاع نص تاني ثانوي ونهاية وثالثة ثانوي كملتهم في Malta, but it was like in the Libyan school.
Okay. Oh,
here.
Nice. Hello.
In Malta. I I still was like around that environment until uni, essentially.
Hello.
Mm.
Yeah, mom, dad,
Yeah.
relationships, siblings. How's home like for you, Yani? What was the experience?
Mm,
What is the experience now?
well, I grew up in like a very open home, and by open I mean like I used to like give my mom and dad like hugs and kisses every morning and every evening, and showing emotions, and I felt very like safe, very loved, and that's something I'm really, really grateful for because it shaped a lot of who I am today as a person.
Mm.
I'm a very like emotional person. I get attached to people, and
Mm.
I'm a very like intimate person. I love being with someone and like really, really being with them, and getting to know them for who they are.
Mm.
Um, so that like my mom was very, very warm as a person, and she made me feel safe just exploring my childhood. And like I've wanted to be like a painter, and then I wanted to be like a Disney animator, and then I wanted to be everything, and she was with me like every single step of the way.
Nice.
So she really like encouraged me to develop anything that I had like ambitions in, which made me feel like the possibilities are endless. And that's why I'm really driven as a person today, because what I saw as a child was like, yeah, but if it's like, if you want it, you can like um, work for it, if you were to simplify it to that level. But that's like um, that's like how my like what shaped me today.
I think you mentioned something even more detailed with your mom. She used to not only encourage and salute you every time you've done it. She almost
Yeah.
was your and still is your number one fan. She used to pay you to
Yeah.
perform. No.
Yep. Yep. That's gonna become like an urban legend soon. But it was real though. No, my mom, because I was a really shy, reserved child, so my mom would be like, "Can you sing on like Muhammad's birthday, like my cousin?" And I'd be like, "No, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to be like in front of all these people?" And she's like, "No, but please just do it." And I'm like, "No."
Mm.
She's like, "Well, I'll give you money." I'm like, "How much money?"
I see your business side was like active
Right,
active
like
active from day one with the art.
I did
Yani.
not. I know, it's so funny because it's I never like reflected on how I was as a young person, but I guess I've always been interested in making a career out of this. So yeah, she used to pay me like, and I'm not gonna lie, it was like quite big sums even for an adult person in Libya.
Amazing,
So
amazing.
yeah, I
So she
was I
gave she
was
gi-
living the best life.
she was giving you a flavor of the good world of this made it basically like there's
Yeah, but
rewards and perks. Yeah.
yeah, but what's interesting though is that because of such incentives sometimes, like for me as a child, I was like, huh, but I can make some, like I can collect money, right?
Mm.
But the thing that it does is that it puts you in that position, and you realize that it's not the end of the world. Like you stood on that stage, you sang, it was fine, people liked it. And then what I've been like thinking a lot about lately is just this kind of mindset of saying, but it's okay, even if it's scary, I'll just do it, you'll see that it's going to be fine. And that's something that I'm learning a lot right now, and it's really cool to be able to reflect and see that it's something my mom has pushed me towards and made me realize without even like that wasn't even the goal. Like for me, I didn't go for in it to be like, yeah, well, I want to like gain my confidence, but it automatically did that.
Mm-mm. That's I guess she had a clear eye of like practicing encouraging you, pushing you is really going to pay up at the end, and the more
Yeah.
opportunities you've tested, whether it's in front of an audience, whether it's direct,
Mm.
um, just going to add to your portfolio essentially and build your confidence.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Yeah. It was yeah, it was a fun time in my life.
We're going to sort of brush through life في ليبيا. حكينا شوي على
Mm.
هارون, حكينا على المدرسة, the upbringing, um, up to the last stage you're there, and then we jump straight to Malta. So what was the last few years like? And what was living in Malta like?
Um, yeah, well, I stayed in Libya until the like almost the end of my high school years. Y- I was not like very completely mature, but I still got like a feel of life, um, generally in Libya. ف it's always I was very like family oriented as I was a child who was very shy and very like reserved, as I mentioned. So I didn't like I barely went out and met friends. I was either عرفت انت في حوش حناي ولا في حوش جدي. um, and then I was either that or I was at home writing songs and talking to like internet friends. Even though I was like observing a lot of the things happening around me, I wasn't like a very active participant because of like who I am as a person and my reservation and my like insecurities. ف but I observed a lot. I observe a lot as a person generally. um but yeah, so it was very kind of like a yeah an overview from somewhere like else.
And then
um
then comes Malta. Is it like an out of
yes.
nowhere experience or something the family planned or
mm, I mean, we were planning on moving to Malta eventually because of university.
mm.
That can happened like out of nowhere because of how everything developed. um it wasn't like a foreign place to us. We'd been visiting Malta almost every year since 2004.
Mm-mm.
So from 2004 floor 2004 till 2011, that's like we got to know the country like inside out.
Hello. The
So
big move
yeah,
happened
it
in
was like
2011, was it?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to
So the
see like
shock
the
wasn't
when you
the
mentioned the
timeline.
when you mentioned the events unfolded. I'm assuming you're mentioning big events that took place that made you do the plan sooner, basically.
The shock was not for us, was not like the place we were in, but like how everything developed, and how it came like out of the blue, and we were thinking it was going to take just a few months, and then ended up being a few years, and now it's like going on to a decade.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. Yeah, definitely. But if you walk me through it, أول ما وصلت جامعة على طول, relocated, the whole family, just you, bunch of the family. What was the split? But at the same time, this is the real experience that you mentioned to me, and that's kind of
mm,
enlightened your understanding of what life is and how you live by today,
mm,
including something I've written down. You're like, I've never really understood money until that year.
yeah.
So as tough and as challenging and as unique your experience is,
Mm.
very difficult. Not everyone will come out of it with this conclusion that you do. This is why it's inspiring. So I'm looking at it from that point of view, but not neglecting
Yeah.
what you're feeling, not neglecting what you went through in the family and how much of
Mm,
that made you who you are today and how mature you are. So as much as you want, as much as you feel it merits sharing,
mm,
yeah, please do share as you can.
yeah. Yeah. No, but like going to Malta, as I said, was like not planning to stay there for that long. So then when we ended up staying there for longer than expected, then obviously, um, you know, in a situation that's so unstable, like in your home country where your income is, or my parents' income is, you start spending money that is like not being replaced. So eventually you run out of money. So we did run out of resources, and it was a really, really, really difficult time
Hmm.
in our lives, because we had lived a relatively very stable life. It was a very, very big shock in a way, because it's like all of a sudden, we had to turn off our fridge because there was no food in it, and it was just wasting electricity.
Hmm.
And for me, that was like, I guess, if we were to go back to what I said earlier, that was the first moment in my life where I was met with this decision making point, which was like, do I look at this and say like, but like everything is ruined and I cannot do anything about it because that's like fate. Or I had the other thing, which is like looking at it as a new opportunity to build myself from scratch
Mm.
and push to change circumstances. And given that I had nothing more to lose, I just was like, well, I'll just go for it. And
Mm.
I did all that I could do to make a living and have income to me and to the family. And
Mm.
I worked as a like private tutor in maths and in physics, and I taught in an Arabic school, and I did a lot of different things. And I remember my mom once like sat me down and she was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, like I want to go back, this is unstable, like it's so stressful. And I remember telling her like, let's just keep on fighting, it's going to be fine.
Mm. I
So
remember,
it's
like,
really,
in terms of you being so resourceful, and that's where the business mind is activated. You're not only
yeah,
tutoring, I think the opportunity came and you saw it as an opportunity with someone.
yeah.
Like, I think you've
And
done
that's
you've done
that's what
homework. Was it like you doing the homework essentially, or was it you doing the testing? I think you managed to make someone graduate essentially by your own efforts. Just to
yeah, I mean, like it's kind of like a mix of everything, because you when you make a decision, then like that doesn't always like turn out to be what you thought. But like if you have the mindset that with everything, that every problem has a solution, like
Hmm.
that's like an advice that one of my friends gave me when I got a letter that was like basically saying that I had to leave Malta because I
Ah.
dropped out of my my course. And then they were like, well, that means that you have no purpose to stay.
Oh, I didn't
uh,
know that actually. You didn't mention
yeah.
that before. Okay.
Yeah. So when that happened, I called my friend, and he was like, "Well, why are you freaking out?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Why am I freaking out? Like, I'm gonna be out of this country. I'm not gonna be able to achieve anything. I'm not gonna be able to achieve my dreams, and la
Mm.
la la." And then he was like, "Well, every problem has a solution." And that was like the last thing I wanted to hear at that point. And I was so mad at him. I was like, "How dare you tell me that?"
That's a horrible quote.
I
Seriously.
know. But you know what? Like that quote is like the quote I live by now. Whenever
Mm-mm.
anything happens, I'm like, but it's fine.
Mm-mm.
I'll deal with it. It's
Uh,
gonna be fine. There's always a way.
I can I not
Because that's
brush?
what happened when
Can I be greedy?
Mhm.
Can I be greedy before we go to Sweden?
Yeah.
We're going to Sweden very soon, but
Mm,
before we get there, um, and this is very like symptomatic of any big event, and
mm,
I feel like we're not doing this chapter of our story justice. Like when the whole um, state of living of a country changes,
mm,
the life of us, the life of people, real people, changes as well. Like
mm,
all we see is just general headlines, quick transition to news, to news, to news. But the effect of that is never really felt. So essentially, you
mm.
didn't have to live fridgeless for a day, a week, 2 days. It was a year almost, or a
Yeah.
longer period than that. Like, how did that actually feel? How did that actually in the moment feel to you, and what was the thing that you were holding on to actually be motivated? Because that's in
Mm,
your mind the lowest of the low for Bahjat,
mm,
but you're looking at something else in the future. So what was the cross of two feelings? Like feeling that this is a really crap day, I wish it could end, but
mm,
also I'm motivated to do and do and do because there is something tomorrow, you know?
mm. I mean, when all this happened, it's me and my family. We kind of like became like a team. It was not like my mom like being on like a separate pedestal and then us being there, but we had to work together. Because for example, my dad was really out of the picture by then because he was back and forth in Libya, and then he essentially just when he stayed there for a longer period of time, then his visa also expired and he couldn't come back
Mm.
anymore. So it's just like we felt like a team, and then we just made that decision that we're going to change everything. And it's I know it sounds weird or strange when I say it, but I didn't feel that sad when we turned off like that fridge. I was like, this is us doing something, to moving towards a positive step, because that means we're going to save this money from that and this money from that. So I was seeing it through that lens, which is like we are doing something about it.
Mm-mm.
It's like it felt exciting in a way because I got to build everything from scratch and feel the value of things and understand the value of money. And no, but like 10 euros spent there means that 10 euros deducted from there. And understanding, how to keep a balance in your life, that like you can walk and be safe while being also like thinking of tomorrow and the day after. Because if you spend that 10 euro today, then we're not going to have, enough money to buy noodles for a week. So it kind of taught me to understand the value of money, to appreciate everything that I had, and essentially to just, I was happier than ever in the sense that I was like, that was when I was closest to my family. We really went through everything together, and when we faced reality, when we faced it instead of hid and were ashamed from it, that was when we were like, when it started being a positive thing. Because it was like, yeah, but like, oh yeah, you got a job interview, like good job, or someone graduated, my sister graduated, or like
Nice.
I found a computer for someone. And it's like, it's those beautiful moments that really teach you as a person that, materialistic things you win and you lose all the time. But if you build something much, much bigger than that, then you can always bounce back from everything. And I'm certain that, it's you don't need to be, a group or people or um a big team to be able to shift to that mindset. Because I, in a lot of the ways, had to rely on my own strength and pull the strength from myself. Because at moments my mom had her doubts, my family had their doubts. So then if I gave into that, then we would not be where we were. So I think it's a really important lesson to understand that your own strength and your own willingness can a lot of the times be the changing factor, not people around you, no matter how close these people were. So it's really important that you stick to the gut feeling that you have and your vision, because that's, for me personally, what's like changed everything.
Definitely. It feels like you took ownership of the 90%, and it was that rough year is basically the biggest opportunity to push forward. On the second idea presented of sort of being in the space of where your people are, your tribe, the thing that you want to make, that somehow takes me to two things: a place and a name. So somewhere in the north of Sweden, and a guy called Max Martin. Like, can you tell me, and like, how could someone from Libya ياكل في هارون عايش في High-Andalus, chilling in Malta, could connect these dots and go beyond that and travel far? Like, what's the story with you, Sweden, and Max Martin, I guess?
That's a very, very cool way of presenting the story, by the way. I feel like this is like the intro of some sort of Netflix documentary.
I'm sure it will be very soon.
But so basically, after all of that in Malta, and like having that kind of mindset of seeing the opportunity of building something from scratch, I became very eager to push even more and go beyond the things that were like available around me at that time, because my ambitions were to do something for the world. So I started like adding so many random Swedish producers on Facebook, because my favorite producer is called Max Martin, and he's made like, he's made the sounds of our lives. He's made like Bon Jovi's "It's My Life," Britney Spears' "Baby One More Time," Taylor Swift "Shake It Off," Katy Perry, Roar, Dark Horse. So it's like he's done everything. And for me, when I heard that, I was like, that's the music I love, and that's the music that I want to make. And that was not really available in Malta in terms of like the sound of producers here was much, much more like pop rock kind of thing. And I was like, I wanted to explore. So then after adding like hundreds and hundreds of people from Sweden, and like Googling their names and searching the record labels and being like, how do I find a way there? I saw that someone shared an article that said like, yeah, Max Martin visited this little academy up in the north of Sweden. And I was like, what place is that? um, and after some research, it's like I found that it was a music academy, a pop music academy up in the north of Sweden. And it had an international program for that year that I looked in, but the
Amazing.
deadline had passed
Oof.
by like a day.
Okay.
And
At this
I
point,
emailed them.
I would just like, yeah, it's meant to be. It's not for me. Done. I'm telling you, like anything that requires an application for me is a
Yeah,
turn off من البداية. فما بالك لو deadline fight نقول thank you very much, I'm out. But
really?
yeah, I don't know
Hmm.
why. It's off-putting. But
Hmm.
what about it attracted you? And the deadline is done. And you don't.
I mean, it's like, my living through everything that we've lived that I described with my family. My mom always is the kind of person that would be like, just like, it doesn't hurt to try. What do you lose? Just try, just try, just try. So I live with this mindset of like, yeah, most likely most the record labels are not going to reply to me, but why not try? Because some might do. So I always like to sleep at night knowing that I eliminated that thought of like, what if that happened? Because I don't want to live in regret one day being like, oh, but maybe I would have made it if I did that. Um, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send them an email and be like, please, can you accept my application because I really want to come over and I just saw the opportunity now. And that's what I did. And then they got back to me and they were like, yeah, sure, send us your stuff. And I was like, what?
Oh wow, amazing.
Really? So then I did, and then I got accepted to it. And I remember I was eating lunch with my family, and I had already made up my mind back then. I was like, I don't want to go because like I don't have the funds. And as soon as I got my email, my mom was like, you are going, and we will make it work no matter what. Like you have to go. Um, so yeah, and then I went there, and a few months later, I actually met Max Martin when he came to the school again, which was not like a plan. He just like popped up, and it was
How was it?
amazing to see like how close I was to like such a big childhood dream,
What was on your mind? Like,
and
what
to
was
see
the first
someone.
instinct? And like, he's here, you're in the room, in the space. He's the reason that you wanted to be in that space.
Yeah, and it was surreal in a way that was like, wow, like I am here. I'm like looking him eye to eye, and he's like, he's as big as it gets in the music industry. Like he's sat with all the artists that have inspired me. And for me at that moment, that was like the first moment that felt like it's such a payoff to chase your dreams, because if I had not done any of that, then I would not be there. And not to say that that's like, I made it, but it was like it was a sign that I was heading towards the right direction. And I think a lot of the times we see signs around us that will tell us whether we are going in the right way or in the wrong way, but sometimes we don't really pay attention. And that's something I'm learning to pay attention to, is like keep an eye out on the things around you, because sometimes life will give you a pat on the back and tell you that you're doing well. And if that doesn't happen, then maybe we should be rethinking some of the things that we're doing, because when it comes out of passion and love, then you will most likely experience these little like signs that you're doing great.
Definitely, but I guess generally being in the same space that whatever it is you're interested in is made. I mean, as a country,
Mm,
Sweden, as you mentioned, highest numbers of producers, excelling people that are
mm,
doing international stuff. Spotify happens to be there for some
yeah.
reason. Probably like a good reason.
Yeah.
Another element you mentioned before, that it is a good space to create stuff because it's cold,
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
I'm
You
assuming it's
have
even colder
nothing to
in
do except be inside and be in the studio.
the north.
That's the
Yeah.
only thing you can do.
So essentially, your distractions are limited, and your
Mm,
time to be efficient and be productive is quite high.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how was it? How was the first response? How long did you stay? Are you there living permanently? What's the connection between you and Sweden now?
It was really like, well, it was the first time that I lived without my family,
Mm-mm.
which was a challenge for me
How
because
old were you when you arrived?
I was 21 I think, or 20, 21
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
And تعرف انت في العادات نتاعنا ما فيش نتاع we move move out when we were 18 or 19 and we like build our own thing. يعني احنا نقعدوا اللي عم نتزوجوا حتى نوصلوا 50 عرفت مقعمزين مع مالينا بتاع it's not even a question.
دير دور تاني فوق الحوش يعني stay forever.
Yeah. When I went there, I was like the first few weeks I was like when I was eating dinner I was like this feels weird. And then I would Skype my brother and just like have him on the camera and just put him and then eat with him on there because I felt so strange. And it was like minus 30 degrees Celsius. فشوف انت عاد someone coming from the Mediterranean to like that was the second time I'd ever seen snow, by the way.
I'm feeling cold just mentioning negative 30 and
it was interesting. But I mean, you know, slowly I started to spend more time with myself, and you know, the louder my thoughts got, the more curious I was becoming as to why it's so hard to be alone. You know, and the moment that I started being okay with being alone and being in silence and cooking and doing the dishes, that was when I was like understanding that that's being like your own friend, being your own best friend. That was such an important realization because I was there and I was looking around me and I saw that everyone feared being alone.
Okay.
Yani there are people who are always just like hanging on to someone, right? Like in any way.
But it's kind of an interesting observation, not to cut you off, but like most of your songs is obviously superficially analyzing them from my very limited understanding. You're talking to someone or you're talking about someone. It is relationship based, it is affectionate, so that's the motivation to be. So one almost always assumed that you are in a relationship continuously, and this is the muse of that, but the reality, you're in and out just like the rest of us.
And the thing
I am in a committed, very long-term relationship. I am married, but the rest of us,
you're like,
the rest
you're
of
like,
us,
I cannot have this risk be recorded. Just just to make sure.
For the rest of us, meaning people of your generation, let's say. So the fact that you're saying I discovered myself as a friend, I discovered spending time with myself. How does that work with writing those songs? How does that work with motivating yourself to keep up the love, essentially, in what pop songs are generally about?
I mean, you know, it's a really interesting observation that you say, because I think there's a big misconception usually. You know, being able to be by yourself does not mean that you have to always be alone. But it means that when you are alone, you're not scared, you're not insecure, you're not overthinking. So, and I'm not saying that I am like completely there, but it's like it's a continuous journey. But like, I don't fear the silence and my own thoughts.
I love being alone,
like,
to be honest. Being under like COVID-19, stuck with a lot of people, including my lovely family, is driving me a bit crazy. I think I can be with myself for 2 months, and I won't be scared. I will look ugly as hell, but I'll still be comfortably okay. And this is a lifelong lesson, as you mentioned. Like, it takes a while to get used to it. It takes a while to listen into yourself and switch off and not be feeling left out that something somewhere is happening. But the reality is, like, being present with yourself is a good operating way to create things, to solve things, to move on with things. Do you find it that way?
And it's like, it's really like, it's interesting that you also like think that it's like a lifelong thing, because a lot of people get discouraged by thinking that you either have it or you don't. But the reality is that it's a process that you take, just like any other process when you start a relationship with someone. You know, it's like you take time to build trust, and that's how it is with yourself. But it's like most of us never really think that we need to. But it's taught me so much. And it's like, as I mentioned earlier, like if it wasn't for my relationship with myself, even, you know, when I was younger, then I would not be able to handle some of the pressures. Like, do we stay in Malta or go back to Libya? Like having that talk with my mom as a 16-year-old. So I really, really like, I think it's such an underrated thing, but I think it's something that we're going to be talking a lot about, like especially in this generation where we're always like connected on the internet. But being able to be by yourself and be like okay with it. I'm not saying that you have to like not that the angle is because like you don't have anything happening, but I'm saying like more like being able to even have no distractions whatsoever and still be fine with the thoughts haunting you and being like, yeah, but some of these are thoughts, some of these are facts, and I'm okay with everything. It's hard, but it's okay.
No, completely agree. And then obviously if you don't have that time continuously, stuff piles up and the operating system crashes after a while and the emotions drain you and you're not able to continue because, yes, a lot of us in this day and age do therapy and a lot of us do a bunch of other things just to enhance your mental health and in your capacity to absorb things. But I think there is a lack of emphasizing this, that I can spend an hour with myself and it's okay. It actually is healthy to do once in a while. I'm conscious that a lot of the people listening in would know you. A lot of your fans hopefully are listening. I'm saying hello to all of them, and hopefully they'll get introduced to many other interesting people in the podcast. But for those that don't, is it possible to indulge into your music, how it started, guitar? Why did you pick pop music? What are the influences? And take it as early as the early YouTube days of like, oh, this is a nice place I can create and see what happens. So what's the Bahjat music affair story? How did it kick off and, go crazy?
Well, I'll go crazy. But no, it was like my mom told me that I'd been singing like since I was like 2 years old. And I've always been fascinated by like, Disney movies and soundtracks. And my mom used to put me to sleep to like songs by Michael Jackson, the Beatles, and she was a big, big fan of pop music. So I think that somehow shaped my music taste because I grew up to really like melodies and like things that are like easy to hum and sing, and I would play them on the keyboard before I'd even learned like anything about like music theory or like chords. I just like would play, and I was quite fast at picking up some of the understanding like where the notes fall. فبعدين my mom like again like developed a lot of our skills, me and my siblings, and one of these things was like learning guitar. And at first I was not really interested in it. I wanted to like play the keyboard or the piano, but then when I tried it I fell in love with it, and that's when I started writing songs and I discovered the whole YouTube cover artist era of time. I don't know if you remember that there was like a lot of people with their guitar on YouTube.
Influences early on, like this, what was your early discovery music? I know you've been singing since 2, but like when did it hit home? You're like, these are my references, this is the world I want to create. I know the goal, as mentioned to me before, is big, huge. Ed Sheeran, Adele, League, maybe bigger than that. But like, I want to know what the early references were before these guys were actually, anything.
Well, I mean, before that, my only references were like Disney movies, really, like High School Musical music, my real interest kicked in when the wave of like pop artists that are like guitar based started popping up. Like Taylor Swift is like I would say is like the biggest modern influence on me. And by modern I mean like when I started being aware that I am being influenced by someone and I like what they do. But generally I'm a really like, I love music and I love listening to different types of music, and I get inspired by like listening to a lot of things. So I would listen to like Adele as much as I listen to Nicki Minaj and Nancy Ajram and Amr Diab and Samira Saeed, and then all the hit songs that come out of nowhere and go back, and like Lord, Melanie Martinez, BTS. So like all these things inspire me. So like I can't really say that I have like three artists that shaped me, but it's more like different types of music that I feel really, really inspired by. It's like a combination of everything, sort of.
Did you miss Sweden ولا مازال؟
Yeah, you do.
You do.
Yeah. I can't wait to be able to travel. Even though I'm terrified of planes. I don't know if I ever mentioned that.
Oh, generally يعني من قبل.
Yeah. I've traveled so much, but I just cannot get used to it. I always feel like I'm gonna die on whatever flight I'm on. عرفت انت كل مطب معناها مطب في وسط قلبي هذا مش غير مطب في الطيارة. I see my life flash in front of me. عرفت انت فانت قبل ما نطلع قلبك وين because it was such a big thing for me. يعني me releasing my first Arabic song in Libyan and like it was with Hassan Shafri. I remember I was like, I'm not gonna take a flight until that song is out. And then I took a flight on the release day.
Ouch.
I'm gonna die and I'm not gonna witness and then maybe but this will like add to my legacy that like I released I see my whole life flash in front of me and like how I'm not gonna be able to witness the things that I've been working so hard towards.
But the business mind is telling you like, but dying is just gonna triple the numbers and why not? It's like it's a conflict.
I mean, it's more of like the like the fears. حتى توا لما نحكي عليها توا, I'm like, what if I die on a plane ride after this gets published?
Oh,
like
no.
that would be so sad.
No, inshallah.
But you know what? Whatever.
No, it's a fear that I do have. يعني كانت في فترات it actually comes and goes, but it's so real because that's like a situation. There's no way out. You're stuck. خلاص تمت.
I know, and that's why I don't get it when people go like, yeah, but like I can fly, but like boats, no, or like ships. I'm like, what do you mean? At least you can try.
There's a chance. There's like a 5% chance.
Yeah, it's like at least you can like open a window and swim or do something. عرفت انت في الطيارة, it's like خلاص انت you're done.
On a boat, at least you die trying. On a plane,
and that's the thing. That's what I think. I guess I never really put words to it, but I've always been like, why is it such a big thing to me? And for me, it's like I always want to have the control of trying. Mm-hmm. You know, I never want to just sit down and surrender.
I feel
it's just
you.
like not a part of my nature.
Let's hope it doesn't happen on a plane. So this puts us at a lovely transition into you as an artist, because you have two suits when it comes to music. You're an independent artist, which gives you freedom, but at the same time gives you responsibility to be a business person. Before we get into that, how can we get closer to what you make as an artist, specifically this bilingual, using Libyan words, jumping into that side of the culture and presenting it to another culture? Like, how does that come about, and why does it even make sense? Like, most people will say, this audience is not going to understand that language, that audience will be offended for the use of blah, 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 blah. Anyways, حوصل موضوع does not come very easily packaged like, here, do it. Not many people have done it. It's not done on a very popular scale. It's always like niche artists, which you do not want to be. You want to be bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes from me understanding early on in my life that music is basically communicating feelings. And, you know, feelings transcend language, and they transcend even words to begin with. Like, there's music you feel where there's not even like a sentence being said, but it's someone expressing with melodies and with their voice something that's like beyond words. And having that in mind as like my substance, then I work to be like, obviously I need to work within like making sure that it's like, you know, it sounds easily accessible, because that's like a lot of the things that you keep in mind as a songwriter is not just the words that you use, but more like how they sound, because music is like the phonetics are so important to keep in mind. So what for me, it was more like I knew that I had like a message that I wanted to, or like constant messages that I wanted to deliver. And the more I grew up, the more I fell in love with where I come from and my culture, and I felt that I wanted to represent it. after making sure that like the music is delivered through emotions, which is like, as I mentioned, like that's the goal. And then it's like, okay, but like the medium becomes the language, and how to deliver that, it becomes like a way to do it. But for me, the most important thing is that I'm delivering honest emotions, and then the language, yeah, acts as a way to do that. And it makes it more fun to be able to do that in my mother tongue as well, like the Libyan Arabic. It's just, yeah, it's fun.
Definitely, and I see the value of it, even though sometimes it's few words, few sentences.
Mm.
This new song is on another scale of that, so people will be much
Yes.
more intimately understanding how you think and how you write and how you feel in that one language. So for how do you expect them to react to this final conclusion of who you are, how you feel, and how you express, and how you thinking in this moment with this particular song, Jikyom?
I mean, I like, for me, the goal is to always, as I mentioned, like very like early on when we started talking, it's like like, if I were to look at myself as a person and as an artist, what I'm doing is just constantly sending people like, oh, there's an update to your software. It's like it's always evolving. So I don't want this to be like the end destination or the conclusion, but rather like where I stand in time right now. But what I would hope for it is that people will understand more about the importance of music and expression. Not just like my music, but in general, like one of the reasons I chose this song is because it shows, as you have heard, it's like an angry journey. And for me, I feel like that, having that outlet in terms of songwriting, expressing that feeling, it's such a rewarding feeling to be like, you have a negative feeling, you feel down, you feel angry, and then you release it, and then it's something that's beautiful that comes out of that. And that's such a valuable lesson that I think that we can be teaching our children in schools. We can be teaching, our siblings, our
What is the
everyone
lesson? Is
around
the
us.
lesson our feelings are good? They must come
Yeah.
out. You must express them.
And that it's okay to feel certain ways, and that it does not take away from your pride to admit to yourself that you've been hurt. Instead of accumulating all this anger or frustration and then releasing it in a really, really destructive way.
Definitely. No,
So
I
for me, it's
see.
like عرفت انت كأن كل مرة تعب الضغط متاعها وتفسها شوية, and then like you just so it's a continuous process of releasing, and like as soon as you feel like it's gotten to that like full thing, you release, and like you keep a cycle going.
If we dig a bit deeper into your music, there's progression, right? Where it made you comfortable expressing more, made you comfortable expressing with two languages. How do you see your journey? And from the early songs, I don't know, was it Say It, the first song, and then Istanbul, قلبك وين?
These are like the
if you look at the update of the app اللي تحكي عليها, like what did each one come with? What was the extra package or the change for you?
For me, it was just like, with every song, it's like me coming to a certain mindset or learning something or just needing to express something. But I think what's most interesting perhaps is that it's like you can see like or at least for me, it's fun to look at my journey and be like, oh, well, I never like wrote in Arabic before that song.
Really?
Or after that song, it's like, oh, sorry.
Oh, you mean, sorry, I was thinking specifically on the last one, but I guess you're talking progression generally, right?
Yeah, in general, like, because it's like the whole process for me بدأ بالمقلوب. عرفت انت, I started writing in Arabic. Like, actually, fun fact, the first song in Arabic that I've ever written is actually Jikyom.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Like, that's the first time I'd ever taken my pen and I wrote like an Arabic song. And it was so funny when I wrote that song. And I remember one of my friends, she was like, why have you never written in Arabic? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's like, it's awkward because it is like in the first time you do it, it's a little bit awkward. لأن إحنا عرفت, we don't have Libyan pop that's like on the radio, like we don't have the normalization of Libyan.
الودن مش متعود عليه, and the way you express it does
Exactly.
not come naturally يعني for you.
Exactly.
فيش references.
Yeah, and then فأنا لما when I was growing up, عرفت انت, I always was like, yeah, but like Arabic music is not cool. Arabic music is blah blah blah. I grew up in that mindset. From like, you know, I don't know what the cause was, but maybe, you know, it was like internet generation brainwashing. When I decided to take that step and learn more about my culture and understand and appreciate it, نفكر فيها لما كتبت يجيك يوم, I was like humming so slowly into the microphone because I did not want to hear my family. Like I don't want to have my family hear me sing in Arabic. Then I was like شو متحشم روحي تو بعد السنين هذه كلها ودلت براند متاع بهجت اللي ما يسمعش في الأغاني العربية بنجي بنغني لهم an emotional Libyan song.
Is that a big U-turn حتى في الحوش يعني لو سمعوك يعني في بداية هذيك إنه لو you're mentally not allowed to do that يعني.
لا no, it wasn't that. It was more like I acted too cool.
Yes. Yeah.
For them يقولوا لي شني بدأت تغني هيك متاع عرفت متاع my ego was like too fragile. Which is so interesting because as I told you now it's like it's what I want to represent. But it's just, and that's what I want to do, you know I want to give younger people, like children, like relatable music that they feel like talks about what they go through in their own language, because that creates a much stronger and more instant connection to our culture. You know, music is such a big thing. Yeah, so يجيك يوم is like the first Arabic song I'd ever written, and I obviously modified the lyrics a little bit, you know, when I decided I want to release it. But I think it's so cool that it's my first solo Arabic song because it was actually the first Arabic song I'd ever written.
I think it's perfect timing. I hope
Yes.
إن شاء الله ما يجينيش يوم بصراحة يعني خوفتني. So with this progression in mind, if for a minute we pause the artist and turn up the business person, so you're managing you with the business mindset of managing what you create. Let's talk about numbers of streams, YouTube, Spotify. Working with international producers, working with very well-known artists. Take me to that strategic way Bahjat actually navigates this world, from things that might seem simple but very artistic, you know, email subjects, persistence, how to get people's attention, at the same time how to keep up and do it month in and month out. Yeah, I mean the business side of this, because it's not just I wrote it, I launched it, it's out there, it's gonna take care of itself. I'm sure it's a lot less painful now, but just walk us through it for the naive artist that thinks, yes, I can do like Bahjat tomorrow and life is gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, I mean honestly it never gets easier. I'm always like looking for more and more and to do more. But like to take you back to like the beginning of it is actually the day I uploaded my first YouTube cover as a 15-year-old. It was back in 2010, and I put up the cover and I saw all these people going viral, and like, you know, it was like, oh, I just need a webcam, I need a guitar, I need to record it, and then I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna make it.
Yes.
And then, you know, you record as a 15-year-old, you're just singing in your bedroom. عرفت انت, yeah, it's fun. And then I take 2 takes, I'm like, yep, that's good. and then you know I stayed up for like 7 hours من الساعة 12 بالليل عند 7 الصبح because the internet in Libya was so bad. فعرفت انت قاعد نستنى فيه and it fails to upload and I do it again and I do it again.
Painful.
بالخير ننزله ونرقد, عرفت انت, I'm gonna wake up to being a superstar.
You never know. Yeah.
I put it up and then I woke up the next day and it was like 10 views and I was like, what? Shani?
Okay.
So then I was like, okay, and then how does this work then?
Mm-mm.
And then I started digging more and more, and then that was the moment I realized that in order to get people to react to your stuff, you have to reach the people. You know,
Mm-mm.
people don't like يعني ما تجيش على حجرك هيك أي video. I mean, sometimes recommendations and stuff on algorithmic, but I mean, like, generally you need to build something before that starts to happen.
But I mean, in a way, you just mentioned 10 views, but I know one of your videos has 16 million views on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that didn't just happen. That's obviously it's a progression of many things.
Yeah. No, it is, and it's like, you know, I remember back in the day, YouTube was a much more different. It was um, much more like a social media thing where you could add people, you leave a comment on their wall, like MySpace kind of.
It's community. Yeah.
ففي البداية, I remember I set a goal that I was gonna add like 1,000 people a day
Yeah.
on my YouTube channel.
Oof.
فمشيت, and I was adding every single person and leaving like a comment on their walls on YouTube.
Mm-mm.
Through that, I was gaining 100 subscribers per day.
That's
And I
nice.
was like, so that means that for every 1,000 people I reach out to, then 100 best case scenario will reach out back.
Mm-mm.
But then that was like the moment I understood that there was much work that needed to be done if I wanted to make this into a career. From, you know, adding people to get potential, you know, listeners, and I started doing that with the business side, which is like I needed to learn about marketing. How does the industry work? How does Spotify work? How does everything work? And I was like asking so many people all the time, how did you do it? How did you make that song get there? Was it like how did you get to perform on that stage? I remember there was a store in Malta that sells CD albums, and I was like going there every single week when a Taylor Swift album would come out, and I'd be like, how many copies did it sell this week?
Oh, wow.
And then I would come back the next day or the next week and be like, how many this week? What's the top selling album here? But just like understanding these trends in music and understanding what people like and what they don't like, and using that as a way to understand my own music, because I needed to think like, well, what's going to be a good single to release? Because for me, the important thing is that I write all my music from an honest place, and that it comes from an experience. But then I put on later like the, you know, the record label hat and go like, okay, but objectively, which song makes sense when and where and blah blah blah.
That's very interesting, actually. So you look at it from al-khalta, this mix comes from a lot of angles. It's not just from purely from the writing or from, you know, the musicality of it, or just looking at the audience. It's just actually looking at proper trends and what people consume and when they do it. So you do a lot of research. It's exhausting work. It's not just so
but that's what I was gonna say. It's not work for me. It's what I breathe. You know, it's like it makes me excited too, because I consume it. I don't just research it because I need to, but I consume it. I love, you know, the newest things that are happening around me, and I'm always curious and, you know, trying to predict what the next thing is going to be, because for me that's my world. That's what I love.
I guess this drive is all you need to suffer through seasons in the north of Sweden without
but like that's
you know?
what it is. When you have a much bigger purpose, you feel like all the little things are like little victories, and you choose to look at them like, wow, I'm surviving this, I'm a step closer now. You know, I just slipped through a hill in the north of Sweden on ice, and people watched me, but it's a sign that I'm making it. You know, it's just like, even though like some, like you would say it's like suffering, but it's in a sense it's like, it's these little things that make you feel like you're like little victories. It's like signs of you actually doing it.
I mean,
but yeah, it never felt like work.
If I can be more, you know, intrusive, feel free to stop. You don't have to answer anything. In terms of numbers, obviously I mentioned there's 16 million downloads on YouTube. Some of the singles are at least 3 million streamed on Spotify. You've worked with Shafe on one of your singles. When it comes to the finances, being an independent artist on Spotify, is it a good place for you now? Is it a comfortable place? Are you working on other things? How does the business side of it add up to the standard that you want today?
No, it's like as a business person, that's like the hat when it really comes in, where you're like, okay, but I need to think like this now, which is understanding how to make yourself sustainable enough to be able to move forward. Because at the end of the day, nothing is worth, sleeping hungry or sleeping without a safe place to, rest your head, even if that safe place was like a couch or an airport for a night, which are things that I consider little victories as well. It's not easy. Like, it's not easy to sustain yourself. So I've had to, like, purely from music. So I had to do a lot of things to, like, jobs and like tutoring and a lot of different things that were not related to music to be able to then fund the music. It takes a while before you start to see, like, the money, like the return on investment. But it is like, there is an optimistic view of the music industry as an independent artist today, because it's like there's so many opportunities and ways to build your career and reach out to people and potential listeners. So it is tough, but it's not, as anything else, it's not impossible. So I'm just like keeping myself focused and just looking at the optimistic, or at the future from an optimistic
but realistically, making singles on Spotify is a stage that is okay, but you need to, in your mind, in order to be fully independent and reliant on it, you need to be doing something else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a known fact within the music industry. Sorry.
No worries.
So it is like, it's a known fact within the music industry that to be able to be a sustainable artist, and the biggest place for that is touring and live performances. To do that, you need to build an audience who will be interested in going and seeing you perform. So it's kind of like, step-by-step process that you can't really jump up or like escalate unless you sign to a label that then helps you. But for me, it's really important for me to maintain my artistic vision and artistic integrity for as long as I can, and not just like for as long as I can, but like long enough to build a sustainable thing that then allows me to have more of a say as an artist. If I get to sign a deal or work with bigger producers or songwriters or artists, I want to come in and like have my voice be heard, because I don't want to be moved around and told like, yeah, you should do this and you should look like that and you should sing that and that's what sells and that's whatever. And I have said no to a lot of not a lot of, but like various record labels, including major record labels. For me, it's like, and I'm not gonna have the most comfortable bed, but for me, I'm so keen to drive towards the vision that I have in the future, that all these things become okay. And sacrificing these materialistic things is for me much, much, much more worth it than being like, okay, but I'll switch up my music to make money from it. It's like, yeah, it's a very complex scenario.
No, it's a formula, obviously. It's and maintaining the balance between what's on offer now versus
a formula that keeps on changing.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting part. It's like, even though you made that formula for yourself, in a year it's not gonna look like this. Which is.
But I can't imagine you're gonna somehow compromise or sell out and take a record label deal that will transform your vision. So it's some of it is kind of maintained and delayed and switched up. So essentially, it's a formula to get by for this stage, to get to the closer to the dream scenario. Essentially, there's a question I do ask at the end here, before I get to the routine and future plans is. But I'm switching it up. I usually ask, what would you talk about that is not within the interests that are obvious? But I'm going to give you something completely different. So feel free to live with it for a moment. So if you were to imagine the scenario, you woke up doesn't have to be as cheesy as tomorrow. In a month's time, to a phone call. I'm gonna somehow wait for the signal to clear out on your end because I don't see your video clearly.
Okay.
So in a month's time, you woke up to a phone call from Max Martin, and he's saying, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's work on this album." Like, what was what? Give me Bahjat's reactions, feelings. What would you be thinking? What would you be feeling at that moment of hearing the voice and hearing the news?
I mean, honestly, I will be a train wreck. You know, it's like I'm the kind of person that still jumps up and down when I get an exciting, news or exciting updates. So my first reaction would be to jump up and down and try and maintain my cool on the call. And then after telling like the people that I usually update about these kind of things, I would then move on to a very, very different place in my mind, which is like, okay, so I have this opportunity. I'm going to work with Max Martin. What is the best concept for the album going to be? What are the songs going to be? What are the concepts? How can I make sure that this is going to transition from the previous thing before? How can I impress Max Martin with my skills? I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do that. And just go on from there. Because for me, it's like, I love these. If you tell me now Max Martin and you already did the album, then I'm gonna be looking for something else after that and after that and after that, because for me it's about the journey and having fun within the journey. But having an album with Max Martin would be a very, very, very exciting step in my career.
I hope it happens. Looking into 5 years from now, what is the goal? What is the artistic goal? What is the business goal for Bahjat?
I mean, I would say that my goals are like in a way one, but like they're like you measure them in different ways. So my goal is like, my general goal is to inspire people with my music, to inspire them to express themselves more, to feel connected in the world, to feel a part of like a bigger community that like accepts them and loves them for who they are. And I want to change that negative narrative that a lot of us who went through having to leave our countries and so on and so forth. I want to like show that it's not the end of our ambition. It's not the end of our world. If these things happen, we still have dreams. We're still going to go for them and we're still going to achieve them. So for me, the goal is to always inspire people to like aspire to do something and to chase their dreams and to fight for them, because that's when you find something that you're in love with, that's when you feel that like passion. That's like the big goal. In terms of like artistically, I hope to be like on somewhere like a few albums and on a worldwide stadium tour, and being at the Grammys, having my first Grammy, being the first Libyan artist to do that, and being up there and representing where I'm from globally. So that's like the goal.
Amazing. I look forward to it, and I hope I get to witness this journey as well. 5 years is not too far, but yet is a lot of chunk of time to do a lot with. I don't want to ask you the morning routine fully. I want to ask you for one tip that you can give as an advice that works for you, that you do within the first hour of waking up in order to be productive. One productivity tip. If it's not in the morning, anywhere during the day, that when I do this,
But before we get into that, I just want to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your goal?
You're exposing me as a non-planner now. To be honest, I'd love to be in a space where I'm inspiring others. This is not to copy your style, to to start things, to think about the next step instead of over planning the whole shebang. So I think the reason I'm able to do this, the reason I'm able to get excited and have this conversation with you is I make whatever within my reach, within my means possible right away for this to happen. So the next phase would be hopefully doing daily podcasts instead of weekly, talking and covering many stories, many in-depth stories as they happen, maybe in a different program, different show, not necessarily this podcast. And we did talk about Netflix. A lot of people asking me, when are you going back to your actual craft and creating documentaries? So I might, to me, indulging into a documentary film is like falling in love again. It takes a while, so you have to commit to that, because a good story takes a long time to produce. So hopefully I'll discover my interest in a subject and make a documentary or a documentary series out of it, you know. So yeah, again, it's in the same world, stories, inspiring people to create things at the same time, making this podcast more reachable to a bigger audience, more representative of the voices of the people that are not allowed to share their thoughts or views or stories or ideas or whatever. I want to talk to all of them. So yeah, essentially, make the podcast bigger and maybe a documentary. Yeah.
I'm really excited to like also see that. I think what you do is so cool, and you know, I want you, and for like speaking on probably on behalf of everyone talking, just to like keep on doing what you do and giving this space that is not really that, you know, it's not that easy to find in where we come from. And I really appreciate you taking that step forward and allowing and giving people a platform where they can, you know, ideas in a safe space and like no judgment. And you know, it's just, I hope you know that we as a, you know, Arab Libyan youth, we really appreciate when people take incentives such as ones that you are taking, and I hope you know that we appreciate that very, very much.
I'm smiling. Thank you so much. I'm really humbled, and I think it only happens because you and cool people like you say yes to, you know, committing to talking to me and tolerating my nosiness for like an hour or so.
You've done great.
I'm looking for that one secret.
Marajaya, we'll both get even nosy.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for this to be an ongoing relationship and a collaboration. As you do more things, I'd love to know more about them, and my audience and yours will share these lovely opportunities. The very last thing, the tip, if you have any
morning routine,
morning tip, secret tip, what makes you productive?
So a morning tip that I would give to people is to actually read a little bit in the morning. It really helps me like set the tone for the day, and you know, books that you like that are like inspiring books. So that's like one way of getting inspired, and then the second one is to actually just write how you feel, just share and document every day, reflect, find like a set of questions that are like that allow you to reflect, get from anywhere like on the internet, like just have a question per day and just wake up 5 minutes, write down like how you feel and answer the question, and just like move on to the next thing.
Amazing.
So that's what I would say would be a good morning routine.
I haven't heard that one before, actually. Reading.
What do you do in the morning?
Recently or normally?
I mean, whatever you feel like is like helping you right now.
The one secret tip is recently we have a puppy, so he's my morning routine. So he's taken over. I'm his servant for the first hour. But it's a good thing because he wakes me up really early. But aside from giving him breakfast and starting in the morning, waking up, phoneless, change, go out for a run. Don't think about what's happening today. Don't think of what I'm planning, what I'm feeling. Just like very robotically get out and just stretch. And when I say running, it's not like athletic in any way. It's just like if I can max out sometimes 15, 20 minutes, get everything rolling, narja, shower, and then think of today. It's like this is a good reset, common place, and get out, do something. Everything else kicks off. It's basically a little engine push. زي زمان هيك في السيارات القديمة you require a few people to push it for the engine starts. This is what happens at your later 30s. يعني Bahjat, this is the tip I'm giving you. The operating system kind of slows down a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing you have to worry about for the next 10 years in your case. But no, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And it's been
thank you.
A lovely journey into your world, which is unbelievably exciting and inspiring, and really requires a lot of us to think about opportunities, what life is, and how we can make the best of it, you know? Inshallah ma yajik shi yawm yani.
Yeah. And I just want to thank you again. Yeah. Or يجيك يوم كويس. يعني you can always look at things in a different way, right? It's like يجيك يوم and you'll be happy and achieve all your dreams.
That's another song, not this one.
Yeah. But seriously, I just want to thank you so much again. And I want to thank everyone who's listening for tuning in, for listening to this whole thing. And yeah, I guess like if there is one thing that I just want everyone to keep in mind at all times is that, you know, if you want it, just don't overthink it. Just go and do it. Like life is not that serious. It's not the end of the world. We should just try. And if we fail, we try again. If we fail, we try again. Like at the end of the day, everyone goes home, sleeps, and thinks of their own problems. So if you live because of the fear of other people, then you just have to remember that no one actually remembers or like, you know, cares. So just like do your thing. Don't think about anything around you. Just do it because you love it. And if you love it, then you'll always find opportunities in even the worst situations. That was a bit of a long thing to keep in mind, but I think it's really important to remind people.
Most definitely. And I'm going to end on that. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
This is it for this week. Thank you for watching. If you want to support my work and get exclusive content, have a think about subscribing to my Patreon. There's also my secret podcast, extended interview, and Q&A. See you next week.